Is everything you've ever wanted to know and some things you probably didn't want to know about crypto regulations. We have a panel of experts here who have dealt with this on a regular basis, so they will enlighten you all on all of the things crypto regulation related. Tongue-tying here. So my name is Jeff Peterson. I run a cryptocurrency podcast called A Bit Cryptic. So if you guys are into podcasts, go on your podcast app and look up A Bit Cryptic, A-B-I-T-C-R-Y-P-T-I-C. You can listen to some of the interviews. We interview lots of interesting people like these fine gentlemen here. I also advise a number of cryptocurrency companies, including B-Token, co-founder right here. It's on my shirt. Also TrustRoot and Deepcoin. So I'm going to let each of the panelists introduce themselves and talk a little bit about what they do and why they are the regulation experts, and then we're going to start diving deeper and deeper.
All right, so my name is Brandon Elliot. I'm CEO of Javvy, and we are delivering the first truly easy way to buy, sell, and manage all major cryptocurrencies in a single secure application.
My name is Chris Cole. I'm representing J. Morrison Academy as well as RLT Atwood. I'm in the space because prior to getting into cryptocurrency, I was a bond futures and equity options trader, having consulted on several ICOs and different things of that nature. I've had to come across dealing with lawyers and SEC, regs as it pertains to taking in money for new projects.
My name is Kunal, aka the Brown Brad Pitt. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a dentist, but I am a cryptocurrency trader. I have my own hedge fund. I have some semblance of understanding of cryptocurrency regulation, but there are none at the moment, so you can kind of do what you want. But regulation is coming, and it's coming fast, and so we'll have to be prepared.
So yeah, I think let's just take it out actually. So I think that's a good segue, Kunal. You mentioned there's no regulations. I mean, there are and there aren't, right? Like, obviously it's not nothing. We're all kind of doing something for a reason. Could you maybe just in a couple of words maybe summarize like where we're at? What's the landscape look like regulation-wise? At least here in the U.S. Let's start there, and we can talk about other places. But since we're based out of the U.S. in this conference, give us a view of what the landscape looks like.
I think the landscape is somewhat complex because I think the SEC doesn't really understand the space, just like most of us who are in the space, we don't really understand the space. However, my take and my view on it is to really put something in place that resembles something traditional that the SEC and those guys would do. So when the SEC comes in, CFTC comes in and say, hey, this is how we're going to regulate this space, those guys, they don't reinvent the wheel. So, trying to put our best foot forward to really lay that framework and foundation and say, hey, these guys went about doing it the right way, and everybody else in the industry needs to copy them.
So at the moment, with the U.S. government, they don't even know yet really which governing body is supposed to potentially regulate cryptocurrency, right? Is it SEC, CTFC, is it FINRA, is it the FBI, is it the CIA? It's all really up in air. But everybody thinks that they might possibly need to get their hands on it. So people are preparing or posturing or putting out statements, but there hasn't been anything concrete. If you look at, did anybody see the judicial proceedings or whatever when Mark Zuckerberg went in front of Congress and he was trying to explain Facebook, which is pretty fucking simple, to a bunch of 70-year-old congressmen, and they're asking him the craziest questions, and he's like, sir, Facebook is a place where you upload pictures of your baby, right? It was like the most simplest answers, and they could not wrap their head around it, and it's fucking Facebook, right, which all our mothers use. So how hard could it be, right? And so now imagine taking Bitcoin or decentralization or cryptocurrency and explain it to those same 70-year-old congressmen. It's way over their heads, and so we're going to have probably a lot of back and forth trying to figure out what, until somebody just takes charge and wants to do it. But the regulation is coming because big money wants to get in, but they can't. Because if you have hundreds of millions of dollars or even tens of millions of dollars, you can't put it to use without really a backstop. Understanding what the framework is of if something goes wrong, the custody of your assets, recourse, right? All these different things that like a broker or a real fund manager would do, right? When you give somebody money, there's essentially a contract between you guys in a way. And we need that for cryptocurrency, but nobody knows how to do that. But so you're seeing all this news right now, like this guy's opening hedge fund, Adam Horowitz opening a hedge fund, this guy's opening hedge fund, 300 million, 400 million, 500 million. Well, you're not seeing any of that money come to the market because the fucking market goes down every day. Every damn day it goes down, right? So that money's not in. So all that money's on the sideline. That money will come in the minute the regulations are announced and they have their backstop, right? Because now it's just like the stock market or whatever other market they're fucking rigging. So they need that regulation, but that gives them the backstop. And the thing is, that's just a smart move. You can't put $1 billion, if you're a billionaire, you're not gonna put $1 billion of your money into something that you don't know if it's gonna be there the next day. That's what's happening right now. In cryptocurrency, custody of assets is it's tricky. The chain of command of everything. Is the money secure? Do you keep it on exchange? Do you think a billionaire is going to want to put all his money in a USB drive? What if his daughter spills the coffee on it? Right? These are the things that people think about. So the regulation will come because rich people do want to get into crypto. My guess is if you're looking at the way the market has been slowly bleeding, this is basically just a forced selling, slow bleed of the markets. At some point, the market will get low enough where they can have all the fun that we had in 2017 so that they can show good returns. And you'll couple it with regulations so they can put real money to work. They can have margin, all the things that they need for professional trading. And that'll probably come in the next 6, 12 months or whatever. But this is a slow bleed. If you look at it, it's just forced selling, liquidations, margin selling, all this stuff. And it can go on for a while, but when it gets low, they're gonna come in. And usually it'll be timed with, oh, by the way, this is all regulated now and you can put billions of dollars to work, you know, and when we see it, that'll be the bottom.
Yeah, it was Mark Novogratz, the billionaire fund manager, who said the herd is coming. As soon as we have more institutional-facing exchanges and better concierge services and services that these financial institutions and regulations that these financial institutions want to see, we're going to see a lot of money coming in. I have a question for the audience before we dive too deep. I want to poll you guys on what your knowledge level is. Who here knows what a utility token is versus a security token? Okay. Half of you? Should probably explain that, I guess, because that's kind of important. Who wants to take that one?
All right, so for the other half, utility token just means that it actually serves a real purpose. And a lot of the early ICOs, they claimed that it was going to serve a purpose, and usually it was transactional. But they were just really raising money because no one wanted to use their tokens for what it was designed for, or supposedly designed for. So then that's when the SEC started taking note and said, oh, well, you're just really trying to raise money. It's a thinly veiled scheme. So, you know, that has to be regulated. That's when they all come in. But I think it kind of crosses, you know, cryptocurrency can cross multiple areas. That's why the CFTC says it's a commodity. The SEC says it's a security. You know, everybody wants to regulate it. But then on the security side of things, if you are raising money, pretty much they just came out and said at the Georgia State University Speaks, where they had the SEC down there, they pretty much just said, you know, even if it is a utility token, if you are using it to raise funding, it is also a security. So it really does not matter if you can justify the utility or not.
So entrepreneurs be warned. it's a security, according to a lot of people. Although I was having an interesting conversation with one of the podcast guests who's a lawyer, and Ethereum used to be called a security, and the SEC is now saying that it's a utility. You guys have any thoughts on like how that transformation process seemed to happen with some coins and
Lobbyists.
good lobbyists apparently? So I guess that's the other answer. Get a lot of money, raise enough money that you can lobby so that your coin is officially a utility forever. So, you know, this space is very much like full of a lot of libertarians who don't want government intervention, and the classic, maybe early Bitcoin enthusiasts might say, you know, we should regulate ourselves.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that? Is that realistic? Is that something that we should just only be regulating ourselves? Should the government come in? What are your guys' thoughts on that?
It sounded like you had something specific to say about that.
Yeah, so in general, crypto guys are libertarians, it seems like. You just can't have anything in at least this country or Western world or now even Eastern world. If there's big money behind it, you can't have it unregulated, essentially, in some manner, because somebody's always going to try to get their hands on it. And there's no difference between a personal cabal of billionaires that are not regulated controlling a market versus government that might put regulations on it anyways, right? So in 2012, 2013, 2014, when nobody knows about cryptocurrencies, even though it's not regulated, there were people still in control of the market. So what difference does it really make, right? Smart regulation is different than, when we think of regulation, we think of like cumbersome laws that bear us down. But in a lot of cases in the US and the world, in a lot of different industries and spaces, there's also good regulations, right? Regulations that protect consumers, buyers, investors. So regulation doesn't have to be a bad thing. When we think of regulation, we just think of regulation because of healthcare, right? Everybody's healthcare is through the fucking roof, and we're all paying through the nose. So when we think of regulation, we think like healthcare costs, Obamacare, this, that. Or you're thinking of, right, like environmental regulation. So you're only thinking about the real cumbersome stuff. Whereas there are pieces of regulation in all our lives that do allow us a better life. You know, whether it could be controlling energy costs or whatever it might be. There's always some type of regulation that's okay. And, you know, in cryptocurrency, it might not be, you know, a smart person, I think, would almost make a global body, right? Because it's a global currency, a global initiative, you know, like a NATO or a, you know, United Nations that maybe, you know, writes the regulations or consults with people. But in the end, probably how it's going to work down is the U.S. will make a rash decision at some point, and then the rest of the world usually follows the U.S., and then we have what we have.
I think that's a really good point, and I think just to take that a little step further is that it's not regulation that is the problem, it's over-regulation. It's when they overreach. So I won't publicly name the exchange. One of the exchanges actually locked my account and confiscated my funds, and it was quite substantial funds, and I had to fight to get them back because I could not answer where the money came from that I started my consulting firm in 1998. They just asked me this last year, and I was like, I don't keep records for 20 years. I don't know many people who do. There was no debate about it being ethical or unethical. They just shut down my accounts. That's overreach. So, you know, and they wouldn't even argue about it. So I think we need a balance. You need some regulation, but not over-regulation.
And in my opinion, I think you know regulation is a good thing, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in the most traditional manner. I think for the most part, when we take a look at ICOs probably has given the space the worst rap of them all. because a lot of people are investing in ICOs because they had this idea of I want to get rich quick overnight. They seen the type of money that was being made from 2016 to 2017. And unfortunately, we just haven't seen that. And we've seen people lose millions of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, even hundreds of dollars for people who couldn't necessarily afford to lose those funds. So me personally, I would like to see this space come up with a internal regulatory committee, not necessarily getting the government involved or your traditional clearinghouses or banks or different things of that nature. But as smart as everybody is in the crypto space at this point, you know, to come up with an internal regulation body or a vetting process for ICOs. Crypto is all about transparency. In the ICO space, there's no transparency there at all. They raise all of these millions of dollars for these pie-in-the-sky ideas with no type of explanation of what we're using the money for, how it's being used, or even any deadlines as far as you know, project completion outside of, you know, half-ass roadmaps we see in 95% of the white papers.
Yeah, I've seen a number of initiatives of attempts at self-regulation, but there's a lot of adoption that needs to happen. Like a friend of mine is creating something called Project Transparency, where they're essentially trying to vet individual ICOs and make sure that they're doing what they say they're doing. And another company, yeah, right? It's cool, but it's small. Like there's only like 20 ICOs on there. And then another project that I'm advising called TrustRoot. They're verifying individual projects as well, and with like a web app and making sure that their token wallet and everything is secure. So there are projects out there, but there's this adoption problem that we see. And the unfortunate thing about a decentralized system like we have with cryptocurrency is it lacks organization with certain things. So I want to maybe go to practicals now, because we have a lot of entrepreneurs in the audience and a lot of people who do have questions about what they're doing with their projects. So what advice would you give to entrepreneurs in the crypto space about how to, maybe they're doing an ICO or they're doing something crypto related, how to approach regulations and do so in a way that their project remains safe and they protect their customers, but still do it in a way that is efficient and not cumbersome?
The first thing I would say is that you should really look at the whole debate about security versus utility if you're even going to consider doing an ICO. And I think, at least for me, we have a patent pending. Javvy has a patent pending for the use of our token inside of our cryptocurrency wallet with decentralized exchange. And so that patent pending, I felt like, was a really strong argument that it's a utility, and we're going to have it transactional. There's several uses to make it utility. But then after the SEC started kind of hinting at where it's going, it was like, okay, it really doesn't matter if it qualifies as a utility. I would say best advice is to talk to a legal advisor, a lawyer, and probably just go ahead and do what's necessary to abide by the securities laws.
So, to kind of piggyback off that, I somewhat agree with most of what's been said. When we talk about the SEC and the regulatory bodies, you don't see those guys come in historically and reinvent the wheel. So, some of the steps that I've taken to raise money and build funds and consult on different projects has just been to look at, how we went about raising money in the past. Because nobody knows, what's going on. When I first, I worked with a law firm. Well, I don't work for them, but a law firm that I use down in West Palm Beach on all of my projects. They're securities lawyers, and the head guy, he's been in security since 1973. And the first time I had a conversation with him, it was the first conversation of 14 more conversations that I had to have with him to try to understand, for him to try to understand cryptocurrency, the nuances, and whether it was a security or utility, is it Reg A, Reg D, or whatever the case might be. So even the guys that's been in the game for a long time from a regulatory standpoint, like, they don't have an idea. So they kind of put forth best practices as far as how you would go about approaching investors in a more traditional manner. I think it's just the right way to go about doing it.
Yeah, I think probably always the best thing is to over-prepare, right? So whatever the worst is that you think could happen, that's where you got to that's your starting point, and everything else is a surprise. For me personally, I mean, just knowing utility tokens, security tokens, there's no such thing as a utility token. I mean, in reality, there's 4 tokens in the world that are really getting utilized on a daily basis. And then securities tokens will probably be the future of everything. Tokenizing assets, hard assets, football teams, bridges, roads, tolls, whatever. That's probably going to be where a lot of this stuff goes, because there's only a handful. I mean, there's no utility in a lot of utility tokens right now, right? So what's the point? We're all trying to plan for, like, oh my gosh, like, is it a utility, not a utility? My thinking is just everything is a security, because I'm not buying a utility token to use it on Javvy's network or whatever. If I buy Javvy token, I'm doing it to make some damn money, right? So it's investment purposes for price appreciation. But like anybody ever do, invest big money in ICO and you get your SAFT notice or whatever, it says, not for investment purposes. It's like, well, what the fuck did I just give you $150,000 for, right? To play games? Like, I'm gonna go on your website and play some games? Like, is that what's going on? Is it Chuck E. Cheese? No, right? We're doing it to make money. And so my thinking long term is probably plan for the wave of security tokens to start coming in at some point. And it may happen soon, may happen later, but that's just an educated guess, but that's how I'm planning for it, is think about the worst and then plan around it. So in the end, look, if all these tokens are just utility tokens and that becomes the thing, then we're in good shape. But if you're planning in it being securities tokens or labeled as securities, more regulations, whatever, then at least you plan for it.
I would agree with everything you said there, except that when you'll eventually be using the Javvy wallet, and then you're going to be buying and selling securities through it, and then you're going to actually use the tokens for something.
No, I know. I'm just making utility in general. Right, even Ethereum's network, what do people really use it for right now? Nothing. A handful of things. Maybe.
So, you guys remind me of a lot of interesting projects out there. How there's not really can't really trade security tokens right now, but there's a ton of exchanges coming out. Like 0x is probably the most famous. There's all these exchanges which are going to allow you to trade security tokens. So right now it's not investment isn't really going anywhere, but soon it's going to be. A lot of people think it's going to be the next wave, and then all these projects are going to essentially.
Yeah, Bancorp, and don't forget about T0.
And there's a couple ones on my podcast too, actually. They didn't pay me, so I'm not going to show them.
Always up for a good show.
Yeah, a good show. So, what about from the investor side? So, all these regulations are coming. What implications does that have for both, like, say, the average investor who's maybe putting in a few $1,000s, and then maybe for the whales and the institutions? What are the implications of these regulations that are coming?
Main implication is going to be that you're going to have to pay your damn taxes. That's, in the end, that's probably what it's coming down to. That's why regulation comes. In the end, that's what it's going to come down to. I know a lot of people that haven't paid taxes a long time on their cryptocurrency, but in the U.S., at some point, an IRS agent will show up at your door. You may think you're using an anonymous coin, a privacy coin. Look, the U.S. government, they got ears on everything, right? I mean, the intelligence of everything. You make a phone call, you say the wrong word, somebody knows about it. So what, you think you said because you use a privacy coin that nobody's tracking that thing? The regulations means taxes. Start paying your taxes now. That's the best thing I can probably tell you guys, because I've had a couple audits before. I mean, I'd rather, finger bang my cat than go through an audit. Like, it's awful.
Yeah, I agree with him. I think the tax implications are going to be the biggest biggest thing that needs to be addressed. And the sooner you start on those things, the better, because I can kind of foresee the government coming in from a taxation standpoint and really taking back everything that you've earned in the last 2 or 3 years via crypto, because you haven't went about handling your taxes in a proper way.
The interesting part would be too is that you'll owe taxes, but then you'll have all these losses from 2018. So like your funds will be gone, but you'll owe all these taxes. I've seen that happen to quite a few people where they're like, they made a bunch of money in 2017, they're gonna have a huge tax bill. But then like they sold their stuff, bought new stuff, altcoins or whatever in 2018, and they're all down 80, 90%. So their capital's gone. So when they get the tax bill, there's no money, there's not gonna be any money there. So you're gonna be in a whole heap of trouble. So prepay that stuff, start paying it now.
All right, so I guess they're closing out this space, so we're gonna have to wrap up the panel. I did want to have some questions, but I guess we don't have time anymore. I want to thank the panelists for coming up here and speaking today. We learned a lot from you guys, it was awesome. So first, before everyone breaks up, we have our little BitBows giveaway. BitBows! BitBows! So the person who can answer this question is gonna get $500 worth of BitBows. So first one to shoot up your hand, I'm gonna call on you, okay? So, what was his nickname that he gave himself? Sorry. Next one. All right. Brown Brad Pitt. Yeah. Woo!
There should be no question in your mind. You just have to look at me and be like, oh.
All right, we'll talk after. We'll talk how you get your $500. And for the rest of you, they're doing an airdrop. You can get 50 of their coins, which is about $12.50 if you sign up with your email. Just very quickly, where can people find out more about what each of you are doing?
So the Javvy wallet with decentralized exchange, we're on the web at javvy.com. That's JAVVY.com.
All of my projects and associations you can pretty much find on my Instagram. It's Chris Cole, I-am, CHRISCOLEIAM.
You'll see me on bullsonwallstreet.com, Bulls on Crypto Street, or my two main businesses. Or Kunal00, Instagram, Twitter, all that fun stuff.
There's no brownbadpit.com.
No, my mom is trying to tell me to be humble. She's not here right now.
And if you want to listen to more in-depth interviews like this, I have a podcast again, for those of you who came late, called A Bit Cryptic Podcast. A_bit_cryptic. You can find it on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, basically everything. Look me up, or if you want to get interviewed, you can send me an email at abitcrypticpodcast@gmail.com. So yeah, thank you so much, guys.